Heather, and today I'm going to show you how to take care of your kefir grains and to make your own kefir at home. So this is a jar of kefir that is already made, so I'm going to strain it and show you the process. You know your kefir is done when you get kind of these bubbles here down in the bottom of the kefir, and you can see there's some bubbles down there, and when you tip the jar it's going to pull away kind of like a pretty solid chunk, so it's thicker than milk. I use whole milk, and so my kefir is going to be a little bit thicker. You can use any type of cow's milk though. If you do use a less fat percent of milk, then your kefir is going to be runnier than this. There will be times that your kefir is going to really separate. You'll have really big bubbles and it'll be like a more clear liquid on bottom and the kefir on top. That's just over fermented, and that's okay, you can still drink it. It's the whey has just separated. You can just mix it all back in and that's just fine. So you're going to need a container to capture kefir, a strainer. I like to use a nylon one. You can use a wire one, whatever you have. You just want a mesh strainer. You're going to read a lot of things saying don't use metal when doing fermenting, but I found with kefir it doesn't really matter. I wouldn't stress too much about that. I like using a spatula, and then your milk to refresh your jar. So with kefir, you don't need holes in your lids or anything like you do with maybe kombucha or sauerkraut. So I just like using these white canning lids and keep it tight. So I'm just going to dump it out and strain it. And this has my grains in it. I make a bunch of kefir because my whole family drinks it, so it doesn't all fit in the strainer. So I'll do it in steps. And you just go back and forth, and we're going to push the kefir through the strainer, and we want the grains left. So I'm not like forcing it through the strainer, I'm just moving it around so the liquid can go through. And then you can see what you're left with. These are our kefir grains. It looks kind of like cottage cheese. And the kefir grains multiply, and so occasionally if you start making kefir too fast, if your kefir is processed in less than 24 hours, then you can just throw those in your blender with your smoothie, or just eat them plain, or feed them to your chickens, whatever. Okay, so I have all my kefir out of my jar. Just gonna finish this. Okay, so now I've strained out all my kefir. I just have the grains left. And these grains I'm just going to put back in this jar. And I reuse my same jar over and over again for about a week until it starts looking like pretty scummy and gross, and then I'll just replace it. Okay. So this is kefir. It's ready to drink. You can do whatever you want. You can drink it plain. My family likes putting it in smoothies. You can bake with it. So that is your finished kefir. And then your greens that we put back in the jar, you're just going to refresh with milk. And you don't have to use a ton of milk. You just make as much kefir as you're going to drink. So I make 4 cups every day. And so I have a lot of grains in my jar because I make 4 cups. But also, over the summer, like when it's warmer in my house, the kefir process is faster. So I have less grains in my jar over the summer, and I put more grains in my jar over the winter. And when you need more grains, you just use a little bit less milk in your jar, so you're still getting it processed in your 24 hours, and the grains will just keep growing themselves. So it's really easy to share kefir grains, because just as soon as you have too much in your jar, you divide them and share them with someone else. Okay, so I have my grains and my fresh milk in this, and it's just going to set on my counter for 24 hours, and I'll do this whole thing again tomorrow.